people involved in this as well, and that was through grant opportunities and all sorts of opportunities to fund new and innovative ways to get more people into farming. Education was also something, so continuing programs from kids to adults to college students. So education is a big way to get more people involved in farming and understanding where our food comes from. And then the other one was collaboration, so continuing to collaborate, whether that's between governments and farmers, farmers and small businesses, and creating those connections as a way for others to build their businesses to expand that production to new markets.
Okay, distribution. Who is reporting out? All right, Matt.
All right, hello everyone. So we're distribution, and we're gonna start with the one that's very distribution focused, and that is shared spaces, and shared spaces for storage of food, prep of food, all sorts of things. So the shared spaces so that there's a place that everybody can use. The second thing is really, I think, sort of kind of production focused, and that is supporting the farmers and people growing food with the things that they might need, which is helping them with business stuff, helping them and helping the distributors too to gain access to government investment, and leveraging that local, federal, and philanthropic stuff. Funds, thank you, sorry. And the last thing is really how I think of it is supporting the consumption end too, is engaging the consumers in different ways, and whether that is mobile markets or meal packages, or what are some of our other ideas up here that we had for that. Yeah. Right. So having where these things are sold be reaching people where they are a little bit better. Okay.
Awesome. I actually like saying philanthropy stuff because they got more than just money, right? They have networks and all the information. Okay, consumption. Oh, you got it, Mike.
Okay.
Great.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
So okay, I'll stand up. So all 5 tables had very similar themes of education, collaboration, and policy as the primary opportunities for this pillar. And breaking it down a little bit further, that included leveraging opportunities at conferences like this one or with social media to connect organizationally and across the region. For education, using community events and community engagement opportunities to share information with residents. And then for policy, using programs like Give SNAP a Raise and others to expand the reach and value of nutrition assistance programs like SNAP and WIC.
Great. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you all for moving through that a lot faster than we did this morning. I know sometimes it's a challenge when good ideas start to get going, but these are all really, really great. And we're so happy to hear from all of you. All right. So for the last part of the day, it's now my pleasure to introduce Ellie Bomstein for this afternoon's session. Ellie has been a passionate advocate for creating a more resilient and equitable food system for more than a decade. She is a founding partner at Seed Change Strategies, a mission-driven firm that helps organizations connect with the resources needed to spark transformative change within our food systems. Before entrepreneurship, Ellie worked at farmers markets, food hubs, in food access, and in state-level policy advocacy. She believes deeply that transforming our food system is one of the most powerful ways we can create a just and beautiful future. Please join me in welcoming Ellie Bomstein to discuss building collaborations for resilient solutions.
If I stack my laptop on this laptop, what's going to happen? All right.
Put it right there.
Oh, there's a second spot.
Is that it?
I may just hold it. Sorry, guys, this is my bad. I'm just going to hold it.
We got some modular things.
Oh, look.
Put this here.
Yeah.
Scoot
Thank you, Celeste. I know this isn't part of your job description.
Oh, it is, because I'm a teacher, and I have to do this every day.
Can y'all hear me if I don't hold it? Yeah. IT man, okay. Cool. Well, thank you, Celeste, for that warm welcome, and thank you, AU, for giving me the space to share with y'all this afternoon. I'm Ellie Bomstein, and I'm a native Washingtonian, so I love DC and talking about how to make it better. And I've also just learned so much already this morning and in the conversations this afternoon. It's been just a really rich and wise conversation, so a lot of gratitude to the other folks in the room, too. So I'm really honored to be able to hold this space this afternoon, but I'm not actually going to spend too much time talking about my vision or my ideas, because I don't actually think that my vision or any one person's vision is really what's needed here. I think what's much more important and more interesting is actually the vision that we're creating together, right? So I'm going to tee us up a little bit, and then I'm going to ask you all a few more questions that sort of tie together the conversations we've been having today. So we spent the bulk of our time thinking about how things are working and not working in these different sectors, right, of production, distribution, and consumption. And I think that makes a lot of sense because people in each of those sectors have their own set of unique challenges and constraints. But obviously, these elements of the supply chain are super connected and they rely on each other. And I think that how they're connected can have a big impact on the resilience of a food system, which is what we've been exploring all day today. And what really differentiates the resilient emergent system that I think we're trying to build is how power is distributed in a food system. And power's come up a few different times today, but not quite as explicitly as I'm going to talk about it for a minute. So if you think about how the industrial system functions right now, power is really concentrated in the middle of the supply chain. That's where the big distributors, the processors, and the retailers sit, right? And those of us at the ends of the supply chain, that are the producers and the consumers, don't really have as much power as those people in the middle. We're kind of receiving decisions that are made by those folks. So, an example of that came up, Mr. Tate was talking about the kinds of foods that you often see in areas of food apartheid that are unhealthy and full of sugar, right? And people in those neighborhoods don't really have a lot of choice about what's available in the grocery stores that they can go to or the corner stores. I also did a little research, and I was just wondering where people buy most of their food in the United States. And about 55% of all groceries bought in the US come from one of 8 retailers. So over half of our food is coming from just 8 companies. And that number's up 20% from just 25 years ago. So that consolidation of power is getting more intense. And so that means, right, the people who run those businesses get to have a massive impact on what the rest of us eat and what goes into it and how much it costs. We also heard Councilmember Parker talk this morning about how the pandemic showed us that system is really brittle. Remember, you couldn't find a lot of food even in those full-service grocery stores in our neighborhoods, right? People were hoarding toilet paper and bottled water. And that inequitable power distribution is also really risky. That's what we saw with the sort of breakdown of those supply chains in the pandemic. And we know that crisis is just going to come more often, probably. We're seeing it in North Carolina. It's coming again in Florida. These things are going to get more intense. So in order to create a more equitable system that redistributes power to people at the ends of the supply chain, there need to be better, more transparent relationships where people share power, resources, and information within and between those links in the supply chain. We've been hearing a lot about these kinds of collaborations all day. Creating those connections allows the people at the ends, the farmers and the food businesses, and also us, the consumers, have just as much say as those people in the middle. I really like the example that Alex shared about the healthy corner stores. And people in areas of food apartheid buy healthy local food when they have the power, in this instance, the economic power to do that, right? So that's what we're working towards. We're working towards those types of systems that share information and have really dense webs of transparent, trusting relationships because they tend to be a lot more resilient and also just more fun to participate in because your friends are there. We heard a couple other really great examples of these kinds of relationships and networks and their impacts throughout the day. On the lunchtime panel, again, Alex and Chris talked about partnering and bringing the assets and visibility from their organizations together, and Chris referred to that as kind of a multiplier effect for the impacts that each organization was having. And they also talked about how that trust and those working relationships and that cohabitation stemmed from shared values and trust and a lot of work to get aligned. And I also loved how their partnership now kind of allows them to see and influence the whole system from production to consumption, right? They have a lot more power over what's going on in their community, and then so do the people that live there. So Renee also talked about how regions that had better networks this morning, relationships and connections between the funding community also had a faster and more resilient reaction to the pandemic. Those connections and networks really let those funders do things that were much needed in their communities more quickly. Networks and collaboration are really powerful, as I mentioned, in times of deep destabilization. But one thing that's crucial about healthy networks and relationships is they don't just spring out of nowhere. They need support and stewardship in normal times so that when disaster strikes, we're ready to go. Chris and Alex talked about the trust building that they relied on, and James talked about aligning with organizations and partners for that super powerful policy change in PG County, right? All three sectors just now, as I was listening, talked about collaboration and how much they see it as an opportunity for what they're doing. Building trust and creating networks and collaborations takes work though, right? That work can look like being the one to design and send out the agenda for the monthly call. Shout out DC Food Policy Council. It can look like bringing people together for a meeting like this today. Shout out to our friends at AU. It can also look like leading that funding proposal, being the one that organizes everybody to send that grant proposal into USDA, right? Not everyone's favorite job, but somebody's got to do it. So I'm sort of a nerd for networks, and in networks, we call those kinds of activities backbone support, right? And the thing that I've learned from managing and working on networks at the local, regional, and national level is that healthy, thriving networks that breed those powerful and creative collaborations need that backbone support. We've all been a part of interesting or promising conversations with a group at a meeting or a conference, and then everybody goes back to their offices and starts working on the things they're actually getting paid for, and those cool ideas die on the vine. So that kind of coordination allows those ideas to flourish, and that's real work. And in our economy, real work costs money. So if we're gonna create a different food system that puts people and the planet at the center instead of profits, and that distributes power fairly instead of consolidates it in the middle, then we're gonna need to work together. And that kind of working together needs to be nurtured and supported and paid for. Right? So, for our last exercise of the day, we're gonna explore a little bit how that collaboration is happening, because obviously it's everywhere in our system right now. And also where there's more need for strengthening those relationships so people can share power and resources and ideas with each other, and then really help us work on that ongoing project of resilience that Renee spoke so beautifully about this morning. So we're actually a little ahead of schedule, which is amazing. So I'm gonna ask you to find a group of maybe 2 or 3 folks, maybe people you haven't talked to yet today. And I have a few questions for you all. Some of us are maybe sort of slower thinkers or slower processors. So if you wanna take a minute, go to that next slide, or I can do that. Hey. So here's some discussion questions for you all. So yeah, maybe take a moment, jot down some thoughts, and then find a couple folks that you haven't met yet or haven't talked to yet today and explore them together. And then we're gonna come back and have a few minutes to popcorn and share. So if you're feeling brave, get ready to tell what you learned back to the group. So we'll have about, let's say, 3 or 5 minutes to jot some notes down, and then 15 or 20 minutes to chat, and then another 10 to share out.